Hey y'all! So today I'm going to be starting a new series on my channel. I think I'll do one of these maybe every few months or maybe once a season, I'm not totally sure. But basically I'm going to be calling the series Top of My TBR. Basically, I'm just going to be talking about the books that are currently really interesting me. This isn't exactly like my TBR for the next few months, because I probably won't get to many of these in the next few months. However, right now it is the books that are really interesting me, like the books that come to the forefront of my mind quite a bit and that I find myself thinking about a lot. Now these books are all books that are either out or they are coming out within the month. I'm not allowing myself to put releases further than this month on the list solely because I'm obviously not going to be reading them anytime soon. For example, right now I'm really excited about Armada by Ernest Cline. However, it doesn't come out until July, so there's really no point putting it on this list right now. So I'm going to start out with the books on the list that I have physical copies of, and then I'm going to move into the books that I don't have yet. First up is The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. If I had made one of these videos for the past season, this book would have been on it. It wasn't released until last month, but I've been anticipating this book since November, and I'm so excited to read it. Once I get through all the small books that I have to read this month for my challenge, first book I'm reading. I just need to read it. I want to know what happens. I'm so excited. Next up is The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. I started the series last month, and I would have gotten to this book this month except for the fact that I had to read 6 books this month, so I put this on the back burner, and I really want to get to it soon because I want to know what happens next. The first book was so good, and I need to know what happens next. Next up, I have the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. I'm aware that it is not just a trilogy anymore, however, I only really plan on getting to the first 3 books fairly soon. I plan on participating in #Year of Cosmere, but I still haven't read this, and this is the February book. So this is one that I actually really want to get to soon. Like, I plan to get to this within the next few weeks. Next up is The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I've mentioned these several times. I've said several times that I need to read this series so that I can eagerly anticipate the last book that comes out near the end of the year, but I still haven't gotten to them, and I still really want to read them. I'll get to them, I promise. I really want to get to these. Next up is The Rook by Daniel O'Malley. This is another one that I've had high on my TBR for a while now. I discovered this through a website that recommends books to you based on books that you have read and loved, and this book was recommended because I read Ready Player One, which has me really excited. I just want to read it. The second book comes out in June, I think, and I want to read this one before the second book comes out. Okay, now we're going to be moving into the books that I don't have copies of yet. The next book is Don't Look Back by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This book just sounds incredibly intriguing. I love the psychological thriller aspect of it. I like the mystery of it. It seems like a really mysterious book. And I've just been so curious about it for so long that I want to get my hands on it. I want to read it. Next up is The Body Electric by Beth Revis. I read and loved Beth Revis's trilogy Across the Universe last year, and this is a new book by her, and it's a standalone. It just has me all sorts of intrigued, and it's this really interesting concept about this girl with special abilities, and it just sounds so awesome. I cannot wait to read it. Next up is one of the books that has been on my mind the most over the past couple weeks, and that is The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. Although lately I haven't been feeling like reading any books that are too heavy on romance, this one just sounds really, really intriguing. The fact that the main character is betrothed to a guy, and there are 2 guys pursuing her, and one is an assassin that's supposed to kill her, and the other is the prince that she's supposed to marry, and you don't know which one it is. It sounds really intriguing, and I would have so much fun sitting there and trying to guess which one was which the entire time. And so it really is intriguing to me. The only thing is that I think I accidentally saw a spoiler as to who the assassin was. I can't remember the actual name, but I can remember the first letter of the name, and so I hope I didn't accidentally spoil myself because I really want to read this book, and I just want to be surprised by a twist for once in my life. I really hope I didn't spoil it for myself, but I guess I will find out when I eventually read it. Next up is Afterworld by Scott Westerfeld. I read a lot of Scott Westerfeld books when I was in middle school, and I haven't read any of his books in a very long time. However, this one is really intriguing. I love that it is a big, chunky standalone, and that it's a mix between a contemporary and fantasy. I love that we get to see a struggling author trying to publish her work and the book that she's actually trying to publish. I just think it's a really interesting concept, and I've really wanted to read it ever since I first heard about it last year around the time of BEA. Next up is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. I've heard Reagan from Peruse Project talk about this quite a bit, and it just sounds really intriguing. It sounds really mysterious and cool, and I just really want to get into it. Next up is one that I hope to get my hands on within the next few weeks, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. When I first heard about this book, I got so excited. It's a dystopian and a fantasy combined, and it just sounds so insanely cool. And it comes out, I think, in a week or two, and I want it. Give it to me. I want this book. Next up is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I've heard fairly mixed reviews of the first book, but I've heard a lot of good things about the last book, and so I'm really intrigued. I know that the first book includes a boy going to magic school, and that it's been kind of touted as the adult Harry Potter. I mean, I know it's not going to compare to Harry Potter, but I still kind of want to give it a try and see how good it is. The next series that I'm really excited about is Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. A lot of booktubers have been raving about this series as this amazing young adult fantasy series, and honestly, that's the only reason why I'm really excited about it. I love young adult fantasy, and if it's really, really great, I want to read it. Next up is A Thousand Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. I first heard about this book around the time of its release back in the end of 2014, and it has stuck with me ever since. It sounds really intriguing with like this crazy epic chase across alternate dimensions and parallel worlds, and it sounds super cool. Next up is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. At first, I wasn't super excited about this book. It's been getting a lot of hype lately because it was just released and like every single booktuber had an advanced reader copy of it. And I don't know why I wasn't super interested in it at first, because it's a fantasy and dystopian. I don't know, but the more I hear about it, the more it sounds really interesting, and the more I want to read it. And finally, the last book on this list is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. I've heard about this book from a handful of booktubers, and it sounds really complex and interesting. The way that I've seen it described is kind of the way that I've heard like Infinite Jest described and like IQ 84, and both of those books have also piqued my interest fairly high. So I kind of want to get my hands on it and kind of figure out more about it. So that is it for this first top of my TBR video. Like I said, I will not be necessarily getting to every single one of these books within the coming months, but these are the ones that are really intriguing me right now. I will leave a link to my blog down in the description as always, and I will also leave a link to my Goodreads. On my Goodreads, there is actually a shelf dedicated to this series, which is called Interest Peaked, and it has all of the books that I just listed on there, and I will be taking books on and off as books kind of lose my interest or my interest is peaked with new books, and so you can definitely check that out to see what books I am interested in as the months go by and between videos. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!